Okay, no, that's the usual music. Where's... Wait, I had something for this. Ah, here we go. Hey everyone, as you have no doubt probably have guessed, today is our very, very special Halloween-themed episode where we are talking about SysAdmin horror stories. So it seemed right that this time of year we would, pull on a couple of the recurring guests that we've had on the show over the last half year, and we would dissect our SysAdmin horror stories that we've all seen throughout our careers. So I've got Paul Schnackenberg, I've got Eric Siren, and I've got Mike Nelson all on the show today, again, for a very special Halloween-themed episode. We're going to tell our SysAdmin horror stories, so hope you enjoy. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins for sysadmins and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks working out there, toiling in the trenches day in and day out to keep the digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and as you can see, or maybe not see if you're listening to this, I have more than two people here. I've got four total with us today, or including me. I've got Eric Siren, I've got Paul Schnackenberg, and I've got Mike Nelson. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, good. Good to see you.
Doing good. All right. So, as you can guess, today's a little bit of a special episode, and I don't know how it is with all of you guys, but here at the Serwich household, I don't know, we really like Halloween. It's always been one of the big holidays for the household for whatever reason, right? And so I'm also and have been a sysadmin in the past, and I'm more of a security guy now, as listeners know. There's nothing better than a good sysadmin horror story, right? And so I figure, hey, it's Halloween. Things are supposed to be spooky and scary, but you know what? I've seen some really spooky and scary stuff in the sysadmin trenches, just like the three of you have, I'm sure. So for this episode, I thought it would be fun to get all of us together and let's talk about some horror stories. And it dawns on me, I had intended to bring a flashlight in here with me, and at this segment of the show, turn off my lights and, shine the flashlight up on the ground and say, ooh, scary story. No, but of course I forgot to do that. You're just going to have to imagine it. Anyway, so we've got our... Mike's got it.
Oh, well done.
Mike's got it. Look, all right, very good. I appreciate that, Mike. We're in the spirit of Halloween now. There we go. Well done. Oh, it's fantastic. Anyway, so we've got a couple of recurring segments that we go through here. And so I guess I'll start with my plugs. So, if you're new to the show, welcome. We're going to have some fun in this episode, but we've got a ton of other great episodes. We're approaching episode 30 now, which blows my mind. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but that said, you can find all of the relevant links for the show at www.sysadminweekly.com. You can find links to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and we also have links out there to our companion newsletter, which you can find at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. And so definitely, if you're watching this on the YouTubes, feel free to leave comments, jokes, funny stories, maybe your own horror stories. You can also leave comments on the Spotify episodes as well. And so now that I've got my plugs out of the way, we're going to go to the first of our recurring segments. And that is our News React segment. And that is where normally myself and my sole co-host talk about some news headline that has caught our eye. And being as there's four of us instead of two, for the sake of time and to make sure we have enough time for all of the great horror stories we have lined up, I'm going to stand aside for this particular segment, and I will let you guys talk about the news items that have caught your eyes. I guess, Paul, I'll pick on you first. What news item has caught your eye recently, my friend?
So Azure has existed for 15 years and AWS has existed for a year or two more than that. And we saw some news. Microsoft has, for the longest time, not revealed their Azure revenue or figures because they've bunched it in together with Microsoft 365 and their other cloud services. So we never knew how well they were doing against AWS. So we now have the news. The link will be in the show notes. So basically, there's about a 36% gap. Azure is still about 42 billion behind AWS in annual revenue. Google, of course, is a distant third, way distant third, but we now have the figures.
Man, I would have assumed to be a little closer than that, but wow.
Yeah, I think AWS has more share in different areas, I think, than Azure does, and maybe the Azure consumption units aren't as prevalent as what the AWS costs are. It's kind of a, I don't know what you say, is a mathematical thing, right? And trying to figure out what makes you money and what doesn't. And I think AWS does a better job at that than Microsoft.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
They're also, obviously AWS was first, first mover always has an advantage.
Yeah.
So, so there's that. But Azure is growing faster than AWS. So at some point they might get close.
So, Sally leaves on a train going this direction at 60 miles an hour, and Bob leaves on a train, that old math problem we used to have to deal with in school, right? When do the two lines meet?
So you just made it scary here. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Hey, it's a
when do the two trains collide? Is that what you're asking? When do the two trains collide, and how many people die when they collide? That's the question.
Make it worse. So it went from like a mental tragedy to an actual tragedy. That's
we're off the rails already, right? So, good times.
Oh God.
But no, that's interesting. Like I said, I would have assumed they would be closer, but like you said, first person market always has the advantage. And the funny thing is both of them are to a size that when they go offline, the whole world knows. The most recent example being AWS, right? So.
And immediately people are like, look, Azure's still up. I'm like, oh, but your time's coming. I don't think I would do that.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well,
I just had no idea. I had no idea. I'm sorry, Andy. I had no idea how far it reached, though, because you start to get an idea of everything that's integrated into the public cloud. I mean, it gets to a point where, I couldn't get into my banking app, right? I can't get into my banking app because they use a third party, IPS. So I couldn't get in from a security standpoint, and because of AWS. And then it turns out that the one we all, Route 53 with the DNS, was causing all kinds of problems with routing. And it's not just because the service was using it, but people just use AWS for DNS. It really is a snowball effect. It was reaching into corners that some people were just like, we went to a restaurant and we ate. We couldn't pay with our credit card because the credit card processor wasn't working. They had to actually go, and you know what they do? They take the card and they put it on a piece of paper, and they take a pencil and they go like this and they get the number off of it, and do you guys remember the little chink chink machines?
Yeah, the chink chink machines.
Yeah. They don't have those anymore. And I asked about it. I said, hey, do you guys have these things? You can just do this. And being the millennials they are, they're just like, what are you talking about?
I used to see and service those printers that made those cards.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an actual processing unit? Have you ever worked on one?
No, I
That's
haven't.
the
I
field
told
by
her.
itself. They're gone now. I bet.
I
I bet they don't even have them anymore.
I believe it. I told her. I said, you know what? It's probably in the back office next to your rotary phone. And she,
What's that?
Oh, good times. Good times. I would like to point out one more time that it's always DNS. It is always DNS.
Yep.
Anyway. All right. Well, I appreciate that, Paul. Mike, I'll pick on you next. Any news items that have stood out to you recently?
Yeah, actually, two of them. Have really been kind of really crazy for me. It is all around OpenAI. OpenAI Atlas. They released their own browser, and it's really kind of crazy because it's fully integrated. It is based off a Canary source, but it's I think they're diving into a whole new world there.
Oh,
And
for sure.
I'm not sure it's the world they want to get into, but
Nope.
there's browsers that have come and gone, and I'm not really sure what lifespan this has, but it's got AIs stamped all over it, so I'm sure people will love it. So that was one bit of news from OpenAI. The second one was, and I'm sure everybody has heard this. OpenAI will now allow for more adult responses and materials with their models. So it's really kind of interesting what that's going to open up. I mean, literally, what what can become of this?
I love Sam Altman's quote was, "This is how we juice growth." And I'll leave that to you to interpret in your own way when it comes to adult content. So, yeah. So
I think there's a lot that could be, that I think people will come out of the woodwork to create more agents, and these agents will be special agents. So I'm interested in the creativity that's going to happen here.
Special, in quotes, special agents. Yeah. Oh, man.
There's a market, sex sells. It's that's,
yep.
Hey,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, it was only a matter of time, right? And I've always been of the standpoint of like, okay, people can do what they want, like if it, doesn't affect me, like whatever, right? But I always look at stuff like this from a cybersecurity standpoint. I mean, how long until somebody does something they utilize it to embarrass somebody else, or they use it in a, some sort of ransom situation or something along those lines? It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point.
Yep. Deep fakes. I mean, right now, that's really common, and they hit the celebrities with them. They've got celebrities, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I thought Grok would come out with it first.
That would make
with
sense,
the history that it has. But
Interesting world. So, all right. Well, appreciate it, Mike. Eric, anything you wanted to cover on the news side before we move into our, our nerd hour segment?
Well, I've been kind of under a rock the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to skip that. But since I have the conch shell for a moment, all right, I got my Halloween shirt on.
Yeah, nice.
Actually bought in Salem, Massachusetts. Right.
Yeah.
I got my Halloween mix. You're not going to be able to see this. Doesn't matter. Here, there's
what
the
is
bullets
it?
in. It's a Halloween mix. You can see it's got bats on it, and it's got, there you go. There you can see it. Candy corn, peanuts, good stuff.
Very cool.
And I also have my my silent co-host right here.
I know where this is going.
Awesome. There goes my camera. I broke my camera. Can y'all see her? There you go.
Yep.
We can.
So she's featured on my t-shirt. Yeah, now she's probably going to be sad or upset with me. So like I was sleeping peacefully, and then you had to go and grab me, and now why? And We're good to our black cats. We're not out hurting them on Halloween because all they want to do is sleep and be left alone. So that's a message to everyone out there. Okay,
That's right.
that's my segment.
So, sidebar. Eric, it sounds like you have, but anybody else out there who has never been to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween, if you ever get the chance to do so, do it. Fantastic. Yes, fantastic.
Get ready because, this is as close to a European town as you're going to get. It's very small. Everything's very compact, very narrow quarters everywhere. So you got a plan. It's sold out already for next year and so on and so forth. So it is an experience, but
sure is. They go crazy for Halloween there.
You don't just show up though. You can't just show up. That's not going to work for you. You're going to have problems. It's just not, it's not big enough for that. So.
Right. All right. So moving on to our Nerd Hour segment. This is the recurring segment of the show where my co-host and I, we talk about the nerdy, geeky things that we've been doing in our spare time. Now, we say Nerd Hour. It doesn't really take an hour. There's a joke there. Well, go listen to one of the older episodes. I think I've explained the joke a few times. I've told that story a few times if you're interested. So with that, Eric, I'm just going to keep it with on your side of the fence there. What are the geeky, nerdy things you've been working on, if anything? I know you've been really busy with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we're just going to say I keep trying not to knock my microphone and my camera offline, and so far I've failed 3 times during this episode, and if you've caught them all, then you don't get anything. That's great.
No, all right. Okay, fair enough.
I have nothing
fair enough.
to give, so
no worries, all good. So I'll jump in with one really quick. Mine is professional work related. So everybody knows I work for a security vendor, and we have recently just finished authoring the annual cybersecurity report that we put out every year. Paul actually is a co-author of that as well. A reason I bring it up is I've spent a lot more time than I thought I was going to spend looking at threat intelligence, and not just threat intelligence for a given week, but threat intelligence in 2024 versus 2025, right? It's a whole year's worth, and compare and contrast, and some interesting findings. So that's kind of the nerdy, geeky stuff I've been working on lately is, threat intelligence.
When are you going to release that?
So that is probably, don't quote me on this because it's in the marketing team's hands now. Has to go through design and all that fun stuff. But if I had to guess, probably before the end of November. So I will update the show when that happens. So that's going to be a good one. So
I think they're aiming for mid-November, and it is of course free when it does come out, so you can.
It is. Yep.
Read.
For sure. So, being as I mentioned Paul, why don't you tell us the geeky, nerdy stuff you've been working on lately?
Well, very quick one. We tie back into AI, but for less adult reasons this time. So found a website, or what's referred to a website in a podcast I listened to called kqlbench.com. So this is a site that takes all the popular coding LLM Gen AI models, and then it tries to do KQL. So KQL is Custom Query Language. It is the language that's used in all Microsoft security and data mining products. And it allows you basically to look through vast amounts of data quickly. And obviously, you may not be an expert in KQL, but now you can use an AI model to help you write KQL code. So the question is, which one is best at it? So that's what they're testing on this site. And last time I looked, the top score was 65% on one of the models. So if you are a KQL expert, you don't have to worry about your job security just yet, because they're still not writing perfect KQL code, which is kind of good. So I just thought that was interesting.
Very cool. So you still have, that 35% there where the human can fit in. So that's not a bad thing. And realistically, that's probably going to be applicable to just about anything that AI starts doing, right? There's always going to be that 20% needed for that you're going to need the human factor for, right? So
yeah,
there's an episode of the show there somewhere. I'm going to have to brainstorm that, but there's something we could talk about there at some point. Mike, you're my AI guy. We're going to have to talk about that at some point, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how about you? What's the geeky, nerdy stuff you've been working on lately, Mike?
Well, not related to my job. More related to my hobby is, I don't know if you can't hear them because of the noise, but you might be able to see some movement behind me. But one of my hobbies is 3D printing. So I've been playing around with that to the point now where I'm actually getting into, testing and prototyping, which I've never done before, which is really kind of cool.
Neat.
So you get into prototyping and you start getting into, using different filament, textures and different types of filament and colors and things like that, and trying to make things flexible and non-flexible and heat resistant and water resistant and all that kind of fun stuff. So I've actually taken what I've been doing for the past couple of years now and taken it a step further and trying to, understand more deeply about, producing functional models that could be used, beyond just, pieces and parts, if you will.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's kind of fun. It really is. It's something that keeps me busy and keeps my mind off of work. So
I'm going to have to pick your brain at some point because speaking of geeky, nerdy things, I would love to 3D print my own D&D figurines and parts. So, because yes, I am that geeky and nerdy. So,
yeah, easily. That's easy. I know several people that do that actually. They actually print their own pieces, their own dice, their own die.
Oh,
they print everything. Yeah.
Interesting. That opens up a whole new realm of nerdy, geeky stuff for me to dive into with all that spare time I have. So that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think, guys? Should we tell some SysAdmin horror stories?
Sure.
Let's do it.
All right. So, as a reminder for those folks that maybe fast forwarded a little bit, maybe you're just listening to this, we are, of course, celebrating Halloween in the only way we can here on the SysAdmin Weekly podcast, and that is by sharing our SysAdmin horror stories. Now, if you've been in IT for any length of time, eventually you come across a situation that is so horrifying that you can't, help but remember it. And boy, I don't know. Who wants to kick us off? Who feels really strongly about telling their story first? Any volunteers?
I'll go.
Well, I gotta get no, I just want to get a clarification first. Okay. So there's two different kinds of horror. All right. With SysAdmins. Number one is the actual, hey, this really turned out really bad. And it's something that, went sideways or something like that. But then there's also when some really weird, crazy stuff happens. So we're talking about both, right?
Yeah, both.
We're talking about both. It's all applicable.
Okay. All right.
So
Eric,
I'm
it's all
going to go
yours.
first. I've got one I've been carrying with me for years, and I've almost got it compacted into that 2-sentence horror story that you see. That I've almost got it into that format. So we're going to try this out. Okay.
Okay.
So,
all right.
On the third reinstall of Novell NetWare 3, due to inability to log on, the frustrated technician says, SUPERVISOR. There's silence on the other end of the phone. And the guy says, OR?
That's not the best response, in my opinion. I can't imagine that went very well after that.
I think that, because again, this is an age test kind of, but do you have any idea how long it took to install Novell NetWare 3?
Yes,
Too long.
I do. I've got
Too long.
I lived it.
So that was their third reinstall because he couldn't get logged on.
Wow.
Now, was that after the 30 disk number 34 or 35? Or was it before
It was
that?
it was at the part where he's done and he's trying to get him to log in, enter your username. And then, of course, at that
Okay.
time, the only username that existed yet would be supervisor, and he had just been misspelling it.
Oh.
Okay. So you get to the point where you're at.
Well, now he's on number 4, right?
You get. Yeah. So you get to the point where you're at disk 23, 24 in the process. And then all of a sudden disk 25 goes in and you get a cylinder error.
No.
Really? You know, and if you remember those days when you were on disk 25, that's about 2 hours in.
For the young ones listening, we should explain that the discs we're talking about here is something called a floppy disk. So before you had USB sticks, you had floppy disks. They were much bigger, much slower, and much more prone to break.
Very much so. And, for those younger listeners, you put those discs in and they start churning, the sounds that would come out of that computer. I tell you what. Oh, man.
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as the drives, though. I mean, when the drives would start working the hard drive with the old platters, and, they would, you hear like, ka-chunk, 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 and you're like, oh, crap.
That can't be good.
This is not good.
All the mechanics I've ever heard in my life that made that kind of sound like we're done. This is it. It's broken. And things aren't supposed to sound that way. But
no, especially hard drives. And, funnily enough, one of my horror stories has to do with hard drives, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. I have a 2-word horror story now then, okay? 2 words.
A 2-word horror story. Okay.
Drive. Zip drive.
Zip drive. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Remember those? So now we're talking about horror stories of us just being old.
Yeah, I think so.
My current horror story is the alarm goes off and I have to try to get out of bed and not die in the process. That's my horror story.
It's funny, and we're recording this on the evening. Well, for 3 of us, the evening of October 24th. For Paul, it's the 25th. But this week, I released an episode with a new guest, a friend of the show by the name of Clay. He just graduated university in the Netherlands and is now in the SysAdmin trenches. And so it's, I was telling him on the show, I'm like, most of us that have been on the show, we're all old graybeards, right? We've been in the industry for 25 years. So it's nice to get a younger SysAdmin's perspective, So,
yeah.
Oh,
so going back is, I don't know how, if any of you guys would go back and install OS2. Were you involved in that at all?
Oh, OS2 is before my time even.
Okay. So my first job was, setting up not only Novell, but also OS2, because OS2 is really big in manufacturing.
Right.
And we had customers that would use OS2 Warp. I don't know if you remember, it was called Warp, which is really weird because, Warp Drive wasn't even talked about. Warp was a term, but, when OS2 was out, Star Wars wasn't a thing. Star Trek was a thing, but Star Wars wasn't. Anyways, so OS2 Warp had the same thing like Novell. It actually had, I think, 30-some diskettes that you had to load. And if you were lucky, you were loading them off of 3.5s instead of 5 1/4s. Because, 5 1/4s, you were talking about 60, 70 disks just to get to a boot prompt in OS2. So what happens is that I learned the hard way that you want to make sure that when you go to a customer site and you're going to spend all night installing OS2 on their server, that you actually bring all the disks with you.
Oh, no.
And you don't have disk number 24 not there.
Yeah.
And then have to drive an hour and a half back to the office, which is closed because it's at night, sit there and wait for the owner of the company to come and open up the door. See, I could go in, take a brand new box of OS2 Warp, break the shrink wrap, pull the discs out, drive another hour and a half back to the customer who's still there, waiting, eating pizza.
Oh man.
It was crazy.
I have to acknowledge here the whole eating pizza thing. Some things will never change. I can't tell you how many data center projects I've been involved in where pizza has been a core fixture of the evening, right?
Yeah, well.
Now, what changes is as you get older, then the cheese gets less because you still love it, but the price gets higher the more cheese you eat. So when you're a young buck,
That sounds like a
just out
personal
there-
problem there, Eric.
No, it's
Is that a,
don't lie.
Are
Don't
you-
lie, Mike. Don't play this nonsense. I know better. I know better because I know when I go around when I'm with my peers because they're like, yeah, we'll take the thin crust. That'll be fine. You want the extra cheese? Nope, we're good. And then the kids are over here like, I want my deep dish with double extra cheese with cheese on the side and an extra order of cheese, please. I'm like, enjoy that while you can. Enjoy that while you can. Because you get to my age and it still tastes just as good, but the price is so much higher.
Oh,
we're gonna not talk anymore. That's plenty of horror.
Oh man. Well, I'm going to launch into one of my horror stories here at this point. I'm going to get us back on the road here, but we're talking about storage, and we've talked about old storage so far, and we'll bring it a little bit more towards the modern data center era. Still a little bit old, but so at the time I'm working at an MSP, right? And we have, 20 people on the help desk, manning phones, taking tickets, things like that. Couple of rooms down from there, we have the system engineers room where I sat along with, 10, 12 other engineers. Now, a couple more rooms down from there was a data center. We had a data center where we sold colo services, right? So you could host your gear in our data center and we would maintain and manage it. Now, one day, phones start ringing off the hook. This is down, this is down, this is down, all for the same customer. Okay, well, that's weird. Ticket gets escalated up to me. I start taking a look. I log into the virtualization environment. That's weird. The hosts are up, but they can't talk to the storage. Very strange. So this particular customer had been using an EMC SAN at the time. So for those younger admins that may not know what a SAN is, basically think a rack-sized device filled with disks, right? Or maybe half a rack, right? Or a smaller one. This was a half rack-sized SAN. And here's the funny thing, and might tell you where the story is going, is we sold this particular type of EMC to a lot of different customers, right? And so I go and I look at the scheduled work log to see, like, hey, is there any scheduled maintenance, anything like this? And I see on the list for a different customer who had the same SAN, that SAN was getting swapped out, which means all the disks are getting pulled and decommissioned, and they're going to unrack that SAN and replace it with something. So I'm like, okay, I don't like where this is going, but let's walk into the data center and see what's going on. I walk down the hallway. I swipe my card at the data center. I walk in, and there's one of my colleagues with a massive cart and like 6 stacks of hard drives, probably 15 tall, sitting in front of this SAN. And I'm like, hey, is that customer A's SAN? No, it's customer B's. He shut down and pulled the drives from the wrong SAN. Thankfully, he had done it in a very organized fashion. So immediately was like, okay, Nobody touch anything. How did you stack these drives and how did you remove them? We were able to piece all of them back into the exact port that all of those disks went in. We pressed the power button on the SAN and we prayed to the demo god.
If you would have missed one, if you would have
One.
changed one drive,
Yep.
you would have wiped the entire array.
Yep. And you can be damn sure that before we powered that thing on, I had a phone call go out to one of my colleagues and I said, hey, can you check backups for customer B for me? Do we have them? And we did. So I'm like, okay, if the worst happens when we press this button, at least we have a failback, So
That was
was a good
that was well told, Andy. As you were walking down the corridor towards the data center there with your swipe card in hand, I really felt that in my stomach. Because at that point, you're already suspecting what happened, right? You're already having figured it out. And just that feeling of, oh my God, the wrong one.
Yep, that was. It wasn't funny at the time, but it is now.
Walk. You weren't sprinting. Is that the truth?
Well, I was trying to, I was trying to, contain myself, and I was trying not to think about my rapidly vanishing evening. Right, so
that was a resume generating event right there.
Yep,
you would think so, but. He managed.
Now I've heard but you've heard that story about the guy who did something like whatever, and then I guess I'm fired. And he goes, "I just paid $1 million to teach you that lesson. Why would I fire you now?"
It's a good point. That's a good point.
Because I guarantee that fella for the rest of his life, he will definitely. Are we sure?
Yup.
Can I get some independent verification here before I pull this?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's truth to that. I have another story I can tell. There's truth to that, definitely. So, but thankfully, everything, no harm, no foul. I mean, they lost, I don't know, an hour or two outage window, right? But, everything came back up and everything was okay. I suspect that had that not happened, it might have been a very different outcome for this particular individual. So hard to say. So. Anyway, that's what I got. Who wants to go next?
Well, my story is not as dramatic as all that. So, as regular listeners would know, I run an MSP here in Australia. So, many years ago now, it would have been early 2000s, a new client. He was the brother of an existing client. And he reaches out to me. So, he's about, 30 miles in that direction. A kitchen manufacturer. So, 15, 20 people work in the factory and another 5, 10 people in the office. So he reaches out to me and he says, I've gotten rid of my existing IT person. Can you come up and have a look and see what you think? Can you help us out? So I come up. I got a server. So Windows Server 2003. And in the same room where the server is sits a secretary admin person. And she's got tapes there, backup tapes. And she very proudly tells me that, I got a tape for every day and I swap it out of the server and it goes in there and I put Tuesday's one in on Tuesday and I've been doing that for the last 9 months. So I get some credentials, log on to the server, go and look at backup. It hasn't been running for about 11 months, I think it was. She's been swapping tapes. Thing was broken. I think it was a credential problem or something, and it has not been doing backups. The existing IT provider has not checked that there is actually backups happening. She's been swapping tapes. She didn't have even credentials to log into the server, so she had no idea whether anything was happening, but she was very proudly swapping the tapes every workday. And, oh, God, I mean, they were just lucky.
Very diligently.
Yeah, very. I mean, she did what she was told, right? She had no idea.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to log on to the server and look in the backup console and see whether it was actually happening or not. So, yeah.
So,
it's a sinking feeling.
If you said it, Paul, I might have missed it. But what prompted this check? Was there something that required a recovery operation? Or
No. It was just they got rid of their IT person. A slightly longer horror story from a horror story of a client's point of view is that this guy was paranoid, as the business owner was paranoid. So any IT provider didn't last there very long because he got all suspicious, like literally conspiracy theory suspicious. And he had cause, I think, because he had a relative who was working in the finance department and who had skimmed a few tens of thousands of dollars off the business. So I suppose he was suspicious because of that, whatever. So, but anyway, so he got rid of them and he called me in, and then I was their IT provider for, I don't know, a few years, 3-4 years, something like that. And then he got somebody new. But I loved the backup story. It was just like, oh my God. No report, no testing, no nothing.
That's always
so I've got
take it away, Mike.
Andy.
Take it away.
No, and this is not a this is the other side of the horror story, right?
Okay.
So this is the actual one that's really kind of you'll understand it. So and anybody on the call here work as a night operator? Is anybody okay? So I worked as a night operator for a System 36, and at the time it was a System 36 and a System 38. And if you know what those are, the big IBMs, they had the big disk platters, and it was mainly print jobs, operator jobs that were running that we had to sit there and watch and launch, and that was your night. It was really boring, but you were a systems operator. So anyways, I was working at the time for healthcare, and we would run reports that would get generated. Literally, we'd go through like 5 or 6 cases of paper every night, the pin-fed paper, the really wide stuff, because it would have to be distributed to all the departments in the hospital the next morning. And it was everything from, patient information, financial data, whatever. That's when HIPAA didn't really exist. Okay. And so, yeah. Anyways, so I worked as a night operator, and my shift was from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. And one night that I was working, okay, the hospital is always lit, right? It's always got people in it. There's always things going on. That's just the way it is. But the IT department's in the basement, and literally there are no windows. Yeah, there are no windows, and you are one level down from street level. So you're like in the bowels of the hospital, if you will. And we used to have long corridors that were like really sketchy because you never knew. It was like dimly lit and everything else. And you really, didn't walk around there in the middle of the night because you never know what you're going to run into. Anyways, working one night as the operator, we had a biomed department that was right next to us. And the guys from biomed would get called in at night in order to fix biomedical equipment. And that biomedical equipment could be like, the IV drip machines or, things like that. And these guys would come in and they'd be like, sit down and, hang out with us and like waiting for something to happen or whatever. So that happened one night. I'm sitting there. One of the biomed guys comes in and we're sitting there and we're talking and we're like, I don't know what we were talking about. And the printers are going, and we got 2 big line printers that are going. One of the line printers stops, which isn't unusual because it ran out of paper, ribbon went out, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I get up and I look at it and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this printer. And the ribbon was fine, paper feed was fine. And I fed it manually and everything. And I'm like, and the job said it was still running. Like, okay. And as I'm standing there, the other printer stops. And both printers are like stopped, and the jobs, they're showing identical things, right? The guy who from biomed is like, dude, what is that noise? And I'm like, you can't, I'm like, what? And he said, well, the printers went off. All the noise goes down because the printers are so loud. And you can hear this like flushing sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's like a shoo, 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 shoo sound. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And we're like looking around and biomed. And he's like, dude, I got to call security. I don't know what this is. Right. And all of a sudden we hear this bang, 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 bang against, and we didn't know if it's coming from the wall, from the ceiling or whatever. We just, bang, 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 bang. And we're sitting there. Now we're getting freaked out. right? Now we're like, holy crap, what's going on here, right? So we're trying to find out what the heck is going on. He leaves, and I'm like alone inside of the data center, going, okay, this is not good. I got to figure this out. All I hear is this bang, 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 and all this noise, and the printer still won't work. Come to be that we're sitting there. I mean, I'm sitting there, and I have no idea what's going on. And then all of a sudden, I start like looking at, feeling something, and I'm like, what the? And I look down. There's water coming up through the false floor. My shoes are wet. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I walk, I'm like, what? And I can see the water on the floor. And we have these, I don't know if you remember, they have big suction cup holders, and you put them on the tile floor and you pull the tile floor. I took one of the suction cup holders, pulled it up, and it's like the whole floor was flooded with water. And it's a false floor. The printer stopped because they basically, the communication, the Twinax got shorted out. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, holy crap, what's going on? We're flooding in here, Yeah, they had basically had to shut down the data center. And it was like crazy. They had like guys coming in there with big freaking vacuum, the shop vacs and all this kind of stuff. Literally they had a pipe burst. And who knows, they build water pipes next to a data center. But yeah, the entire freight floor was flooded and it caused everything. And that's where that whoosh, whoosh sound was, because the water was still coming in, it was filling up it was rising up to the floor.
Wow.
And we never figured out what the banging noise was. Something was banging on something, but we never figured that out. Wow. So that was kind of like a freak out moment, like Halloween could be like ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was weird.
You kind of touched on it. So I still work in a hospital, y'all. And fortunately, I don't go in as much because there's people there and that's not really cool. But at night at 4:30, those hospital, you're saying, oh yeah, lights are on, people are there. There's a few people there, like 3 in a 10-story building, right?
Yeah.
And so, I had to work at our main hospital once, and I'm already not liking being there. I don't really, again, the people thing, not really my jam. But I worked later than I intended to, and it was like 5:30 as I was leaving. There's nobody here. The hospital is empty. Yeah, so you're watching the horror movies, and they're like, how is it possible that you're having all these horror scenes in this hospital and there's nobody there? That's what they're like. After like 5 o'clock, hospitals are unbelievably empty. And part of it, like you drive by and you look at this building and like, wow, it's so huge. And like 60% of it is administrative. They're doing billing and insurance, and they're not actually doing anything. And then another 40% is usually like clinics that close at 5. There's not a whole lot of actual 24-hour service in a hospital building. So around 5 o'clock, they empty out, they're gone. And those corridors are spooky after dark.
Oh yeah,
they're scary. And I know the maintenance guys are down there like, I'm going to just kind of not fully connect this. I'm just going to do that so that at 5 o'clock when Eric's leaving, it's going to flicker on him and he's going to, and and it was weird listening to Andy earlier. It's like, I was like, you're just leisurely strolling to the data center in the middle of a crisis. Like I was just leaving work that day and any sound and I would have been gone. Because this is not okay. I'm in the middle of a reanimator here. And so you were talking about how you get the long hallway and you don't know what's coming around the corner. Yeah, I was like, I do kind of have an idea of what's coming around the corner, and it's a zombie or something. Yeah. This is not great. Because the other part of it, you're talking about, well, IT's in the basement. Well, when I was at the main campus, ours was subfloor 2. So they built a basement and then they put IT under it. So that's where we were. And the other thing on subfloor 2 is the morgue. Because that's okay.
Of course.
And the lights and the flickering lights and the emptiness, and it's so quiet.
Yeah, it is. Like, it is, because
all I need is one pin drop and I'm out of here. You're not even gonna.
Yeah, they would they would turn down the lights to save power at night, right? So the corridors, actual hallways would be dark. And then we had a tunnel that connected to another hospital. And this hospital primary function was psychiatry.
Oh,
And
boy.
you never knew what could come walking across that tunnel.
You know,
You know?
the whole morgue thing next to the IT department. It's funny. My great grandfather was a mortician, and one time I asked my grandfather, I'm like, okay, so you grew up in a mortuary house. Wasn't it weird there being dead bodies all over the place? You know, and he looks at me and he's like, son, it's not the dead ones you got to worry about. Yeah. So, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You know.
You're not going to do anything. You're not going to move.
Right. So, you know, Mike, your story reminded me of my other big horror story I wanted to tell. Water related, slightly different, water related. So, my very first IT job, I was a desktop admin for a K through 12 school district, right? I did some light server stuff, right? But basically a desktop administrator. Anyway, it's the weekend, and I don't know, it was a time of the school year where there wasn't a lot of school functions going on over the weekend. So basically the whole building would be essentially shut down, right? And we would get alerts on, a switch goes down or something. We had basic alerting set up. Well, one day, we get the alert that, oh, the switch is offline, the servers are offline. Basically alerts from everything, which, typically meant like, oh, the internet's down, right? Like, okay, the internet's down and every device typically is the internet. Anyway, so we don't really think anything of it, right? We got this alert, I don't know, probably 9-10 p.m. at night on Friday. Well, it comes Sunday, the maintenance guy was there in the building, and we get a phone call that says, hey, you IT guys, you should probably come over here, and check things out. So, my supervisor at the time, the sysadmin, and I, we both show up there, and we walk into like the hallways that are so outside of the library of the school. The data center and the IT offices were kind of in a section just off of the library. And so we open the door to the library and you walk in and you step on the floor and it just squish, squish, squish. There's water coming up out of the carpet, right? And so we walk back to where the data center is, and so I don't know if it's like this in Australia, Paul, but I know here in the US, certain walls inside of a building are deemed to be fire walls, right? Like they're more structural walls that are designed to break a fire, right? Well, the library was surrounded by these, including the data center that where our stuff was running in. Add to that the door to the data center had those really thick, like rubber door stops that were really tight to the floor. Well, you can see where I'm going with this. When we opened the door to the data center, I kid you not, water came flowing out.
Negative pressure. Yeah.
Flowing out. And you walk in there and all this water has now flown out into the main library area. There had, as I've told the story throughout the years, the height of the water has gotten higher and higher, of course, right? But realistically,
you gotta keep your nose above it. Yeah, it's okay.
I know, right? Exactly. But, realistically, there was probably 8, 9, maybe 10 inches of water in there. And here's the thing. What were the two lowest components on the main server rack? UPSs. There were two UPSs on the bottom of the rack. And here's the other thing. This water was in the range of about 130 degrees Fahrenheit, because this school had radiant heat, is at least what we would call it here in the States, where basically it uses hot water to radiate heat into places. And so what had happened in an adjacent closet, here's back to your story, Mike, where they ran pipes next to a data center. Well, one of those pipes burst. All the water fell out of it. It lost its pressure. And so all the way down in the boiler room, the controller was like, whoa, the temperature in this pipe is not as high as it should be. Let's keep sending hot water there to try and solve the issue. And yeah, so the fallout is of course the UPSs were dead, but the amount of humidity in that room while servers kept spinning for however long they kept running, I think we only lost maybe 2 servers at the time, but over the next 6 months, we lost all the rest of them too. They just dropped like flies, because of the humidity. But yeah, that is my water-related horror story in terms of my sysadmin journeys. That was I think I was, year 2 of my career at that point, and that was the first situation where I was like, whoa, bad stuff is happening. This is going to be an all-dayer, so anyway.
Yeah,
good times, and fun was had by all.
You can laugh about it afterwards. That's the funny thing. Anyway, I want to fit in one modern story. I was thinking about stories that weren't 15 years ago when people doing stupid things with technology. So I thought, do I have a fresh one? So I do have a fresh one. So a colleague of mine runs his own MSP here on the coast. We've known each other for a good 15 years or something. So one of his clients, a long-term client, it's had them for a long time. They're an insurance assessor company. So they travel to all these insurance, somebody had a tree fall on their house or something, and they got to go there, take the photos, assess the damage, figure out, what was the reason for the whole thing. And they got to, of course, document all this, right? So they got photos and text and everything else. They've got to document that. And legally, they have to keep that for 7 years. So about 9 months or something ago, he comes to me and he says, look, you're the expert on Microsoft 365. How can I do this? So we went through it, and I said, look, you store it in SharePoint. You set up retention policies, and you set those retention policies to keep that stuff for 7 years. Even if somebody has permissions and they go in and they delete the document or delete the video because, they made a mistake and they don't want it to be known that they made a mistake, it's going to still be there, right? Like it's not deleted. And that way you can guarantee that they are not going to get fined under this regulation they have to be under. And he said, oh, it's great, because I found out that the penalty for breaking this regulation is $500,000 Australian dollars, which is about $350 US. And this is a small company. There'd be 10 or 12 people working at this company. So there's a lot of money, right?
Right.
So he goes through this whole thing, sets up the system, shows them how it works, all goes well. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he calls me and he says, you know what happened? They didn't store the stuff in the SharePoint site. They stored it on an external hard drive. And guess what happened? The external hard drive broke. And he's now in the process of offboarding this client because he doesn't want them anymore because their trust is broken. But the interesting thing is, people just do their own thing. Now, I know you guys obviously work in bigger environments where people don't get away with this sort of shit, but the feeling he must have had in his stomach when he realized how stupid they did this. Yeah, we'll just store it on this external hard drive. That'll work better. It's easier.
Yeah. I'm going to correct you there, my friend. The idea that they're doing it better or differently in the big businesses is not true. In fact, they do stupider things the bigger they get.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. No. Although my favorite one, it wasn't stupid. It sounded stupid at first until I really thought it through. I went to a place and they said, well, we have this gigantic availability group set up for our Exchange server, so we don't back it up. There's no backups for Exchange. I'm like, what? And he's like, all right, let me show you the architecture. And he goes, here's the thing. If somebody deletes an email and we don't have a backup, then when they go to sue us, it's gone. Okay.
So,
cool.
All right.
So by design, operating as designed.
Operating as designed. And I mean, the redundancy on this thing was really ridiculous, and it had delayed and everything. This was a bit before the ransomware stuff, so I'd be more nervous about it today than I was then. But still, it was the whole, yeah, you can't, you can send all the subpoenas you want. We can't bring what we don't have.
It's amazing how many organizations I've seen do something along those lines purposefully, specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
But there's still a whole lot of things you walk in and go, this is a multi-million, maybe multi-billion-dollar organization. Why are we doing it this way? Because I've been in these mom and pop shops who have a $10,000 annual IT spend, and they're not doing it that way. They're smarter than that. What are you doing? Like, well, you see, 15 years ago, Kevin came on, and Kevin didn't know what he was doing, but Kevin set that up, and nobody ever looked at it. And so your Fortune 50 company now depends on this thing that Kevin didn't do right. Like, yeah, we're kind of afraid to touch it now. All right, and it's everywhere. It is not. This is not a one-off story, and I need to. So I'm gonna give you the horror piece of this, y'all. Maybe we should just go back to cash because your bank is not doing anything right.
Yeah. That's true.
If it's Bank of America or Jim and Bob's local bank. And they're all doing it wrong. They don't care about your security. They don't know about your security. The people who are in charge of your security can't get anybody in charge of your money to listen to them, or they just don't know what they're talking about, so it doesn't even matter. Nobody cares, and nobody's paying attention. No one's in charge. Your money is absolutely not safe. The only reason you still have money is because the hackers are just as stupid as the people trying to protect your money. That's the only thing saving us is everybody is just as stupid as everybody else. And if you're not scared yet, you're not paying attention.
I think Eric's stashing his money in his under his mattress. He's not. He doesn't trust the bank.
Movie where he did all this stuff with his cash, and then that building burned down. I'm like, well, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, that I got to tell you, I got one that ties into that. Is working for an insurance industry. I consulted with an insurance company, and the contract was for several things. One of them was on backup, and they were running Commvault. They were running a big library, the robotic, backup with Commvault. I hate Commvault, by the way. It was so complicated. It's gotten easier, I guess, but I mean, I haven't touched it in years. But back then, it was really complicated. And the point, but the point is that the person who was a sysadmin, okay, they had 4 or 5 people in IT, big insurance company, small IT, just like normal. They don't spend any money on their IT. They just, have one guy that if he were to get hit by a truck, then, they don't know anything about what's going on, right? Well, this person decided that it was in the best practices, what he thought was great wisdom is that the tapes he would take home every night. He would basically put them in the trunk of his car and he would take them home, or he would do it on weekends. He'd take the fulls, right? And the yearlies, and they would be inside of a case. Now, I'm not talking like a nice, secure Pelican case. I'm talking like a cardboard box case. Okay. And they would go into the trunk of his car. Okay. So all of this data is in the trunk of his car. And he said, well, take it out every night, get home, take it out, come before I come in the morning, I put it back in my trunk. I go back, okay, got that all squared away. Right. Turns out after the contract was done, I was out of that situation. But I still had contacts inside, and they told me that guy had gotten into an accident. Okay. And the car was totaled. Okay. And when they went to look at the car, when the guy went to look at the car, all of the tapes were in his trunk. Oh. Now, I'm not talking about just one day or 1 week. It was all of them. He never took them out of his trunk.
Oh, no. Oh.
Oh,
I mean, you're supposed to physically destroy, media when you don't need it anymore. But I mean, not like that.
I did backup almost exclusively for 4 years, and it would take a while for me to pick like my top 10. So I'm going to give you my top 2. One was the well-meaning woman who did kind of that. I take the tape home every day. But what she did is she didn't even go as far as your fellow did. She just tossed it on the dashboard in Arizona.
Oh.
And she calls us one day like, I can't get the tape in to the drive. Uh-huh. Does it look like a banana maybe? Well, now that you mention it. Uh-huh. So this one though, this is going to be a caution. It's a bit of a cautionary tale, but because I probably should not admit this too loudly. After a while, though, you see enough of the same stuff. I do feel like we can lose our compassion a little bit. This one actually made me really sad.
No.
Really, really sad. It just destroyed my heart that day. And they had hired us to set up, and I was thinking, like, you work in an 8 to 5 business. We were insurance agencies who we were working with, right? They all went home at 5 o'clock. I'm like, so you're going to do a full backup every night because you have more than enough time. There's nobody working from it. None of that. They leave at 5. It's done. So backup takes 3 hours. More than enough time. You're going to run a full backup every single day. Well, they get some fly-by-night guy, my cousin who knows about computers in there, and he's like, well, you don't need to do that. You can do, what they call it, the incrementals.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no.
So he sets them up on incremental, and then same deal, like, you got to change tape. Well, the thing is, they'd go in there, they'd pull the tape out, and then they'd put it right back in. They weren't rotating their tapes because somebody's like, but I was told to do it that way. And like, even if you know nothing about computers, why would you think that's what you're supposed to do? Right? So anyway, yeah, so they called me and I don't remember what happened. I think the main array and their server had failed or something. Like, do you have your tapes? Oh yeah, we do that every day. Yeah, all they had was this one tape with one incremental backup on it. That's all they had. And like, everything's gone. Like, everything is gone. Yeah, it's all gone.
Hey,
you're not getting that back. Like, but it's gone. And these people were in tears because they didn't know. I still think there's a tiny bit of you should have suspected something when you're putting the same tape right back in.
Yeah, think of the money they saved on tape, though, Eric. I mean, they only used one tape.
Okay. You know what? And I'll forgive that one. But they went from the full backups that they had more than enough time to do nightly to this incremental thing. And why? They saved nothing doing that. Right? Nothing. And so but they were like, but, and I think they wound up having to go out of business. They lost everything over. So that was one of the few times it's like, you didn't deserve that outcome.
I think we crossed the line.
You didn't deserve that.
Yeah, I think we've crossed the line from horror stories into just lazy admins because there's,
It's the deal where he didn't work there. He just came in and, I can make things better, stronger, faster. I know more than that guy, who's 2 states away and, you want to talk. I know more than he does. Well, maybe you do, but what I don't do is I never put anybody out of business. Let me tell you that.
Tying what the two of you, Eric and Mike, have said here. Mike on the they save some money front, and Eric on the hey, the big guys are not doing it any better. So for a period of time, I worked for a Fortune 100 manufacturer, and that's where I got a lot of my very early sysadmin experience. Well, this place had an AS400 and not one of the server chassis type ones. I'm talking like one of the big, it's on 4 wheels, like great looking AS400. And everything in this facility was dependent on that AS400 in some way, shape, or form. Now, do you think they bought the redundant power supplies for said AS400?
Oh no.
No.
Wait. Is it the one? Is it that IBM model where they were both in there, but they didn't pay to turn the other one on? Is that what?
That's the one. That's the one. But here's the thing: like, for some reason, the other... That's interesting. I was only kind of like... I knew about this incident just because I was there. I was not actively involved in its resolution. So I don't remember exactly if the second power supply was there, but for whatever reason, the power supply had failed. They couldn't power the machine on. And instead of, having a spare on the shelf or having paid or licensed the secondary one, what do you think they do? So this facility is in northern Michigan, and they paid for an IBM technician to get in a car in, I think, Cleveland, to get in a taxi and have the taxi take them the 7-hour drive or whatever it was to get to where this AS400 was and put a new power supply in it. So I question that now, because you say that, Eric, it is even worse if the second power supply was in there and they just chose not to license it and instead waited for this technician to show up with a new power supply.
I am not going to swear. I know IBM did a lot, like your CPU. You had multiple core or multiple CPUs in there, but you could only use the ones you paid for. I don't know if the power supplies also work that way. I don't know that for a fact. However, so there's a joke running around where they said Cisco reportedly paid $14 million for Splunk, and then they're like, we're not sure if they bought the company or if they just renewed their license. Same kind of deal with this IBM thing. It may very well have been cheaper to pay someone to drive in a taxi for 8 hours, well, 16, because it's probably portal to portal. Probably cheaper to do that than it was to have IBM just turn the second power supply on that they'd already paid for. That was one of the reasons I got a lot of people off of the AS400 and the I series. Like, I kind of got them off that because it's like, this is, you bought it and then you have to license it. Like, IBM was into subscriptions before subscriptions were a thing. You know what I mean? And
that's amazing. Yeah. I didn't realize they were doing that. It sounds like, how you can buy a BMW now and you got to buy the subscription if you want heated seats or something. You got to buy an extra. I thought that was a new thing, but clearly IBM has been in that.
Started that nonsense. IBM started that nonsense, and it's like the world didn't learn from them, because it's one of the reasons people got away from IBM. I already paid for it. What do you mean I got to pay for it some more?
Yeah. I got to round us off with one good story here. This is actually secondhand. It's not me. Sure. The guy whose hacker name is Grifter, and his real name is Mike, I think. He's been running the network for Black Hat for the last 15 years or so. So if you don't know, I've never been to Black Hat, but I've heard the stories. Basically, they run their own network. So they come in... They have their own, there's a bit of background noise. They have their own switches and Wi-Fi access points and everything. And they just run the whole thing. They run a SOC for the couple of weeks that they're there. They run everything themselves. These guys also do work as pen testers and incident response. So they get called in, tying back to Eric's comment about big business doesn't do it any better, to a big financial company. They didn't say which one, but this would have been like one of the 10 biggest in the world. Get called into their New York office. They walk past the SOC. So they have, 20 people working in the SOC there. And they go into the back room and they say, okay, well, we just want you guys to check that we're doing the right thing. So so they capture some network traffic for 24 hours. Then they sit down and they look at the network traffic, and there's FTP traffic. So they go to the CISO and they say, well, we're seeing FTP traffic on the network. And the guy says, well, no, that's not possible. We don't use FTP. You can't see that. And they go, well, but it's here. Like, we can see FTP traffic on the network. Should we investigate? And they go, yeah, okay, find out. So they sit this guy down in front of the computer and they show him this FTP traffic. So every night on a regular schedule, there's an FTP connection open to a server in Russia, sending a file. And the CISO sits there, and they said it was like somebody kicked him in the stomach. He just went, oh. And he said, you didn't see that. And they said, okay, well, what did we not see that we didn't see? And he said, well, this is all our daily transactions for the day. And they said, well, how long has this been going on? They only had logs for 6 months, every night for 6 months, probably for a lot longer, but they had no idea because the logs were gone. They didn't keep logs for any longer. So I talk about horror story, talk about companies not doing the right thing. I mean, that's...
Oh, man. Oh, that is, wow. I'd say that's a good one
Your bank
to...
accounts are not safe. Your bank accounts are not safe.
And that comes back to your point from earlier in the episode, Eric, for sure. So,
Yeah.
well,
That's what made
guys,
me think of it.
yeah, I think that's a good one to leave it off with until we're gonna have to do this again next year. We're gonna have to make it an annual thing, and so hopefully we'll have some new horror stories to share next year.
Why are you gonna say hopefully?
Maybe I shouldn't say hopefully.
No, don't say hopefully.
Hopefully we'll hear about some new horror stories before the next year's episode, right? So
I'm not.
It's on my list that we didn't get to
something I
today.
didn't bring this year that I've already got. Let's just have a calm year for once.
Yeah.
calm year. We'll go for it. That's funny. Well, guys, I appreciate you all taking the time to come and share your horror stories. This is fun. I really, really appreciate it and had a lot of fun with this, you guys. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
fun.
Give us a
Really, really good.
Yeah, for sure. And those of you watching, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any of your own horror stories you'd like to share, you can leave them in the comments, either on the YouTube version of this episode or on the Spotify version of this episode. You can also email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com. You can send your horror stories in that way. And, I'd love to share comments on the show. So, if you have a good horror story, maybe I'll have to share one a week for the next 3 or 4 weeks, right? So, we'll see. So, anyway, I appreciate you spending some time with us. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. With that, we'll let you get back to your day. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you again for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Surprise, coming next week. Right? Maybe not surprise. Anyway, talk to you later, folks. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.